Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and I hope all of you are having a fantastic day. Hot off the tail of, yesterday, of course, being the big Apple event. So later on in today's show, didn't have time yesterday. But later on in today's show, we'll go through what they announced, what you really, well, I'm not going to say that, what we think is what you should think, but we're going to go over some things that we've really enjoyed through the event and talk about, quite frankly, the price of phones and how ridiculous they're kind of getting. Because I think it maxes out at about $1,400 for the latest iPhone. It's getting pretty crazy. Now, we're going to talk about that. We have a lot more news in the second hour. You're going to want to hear about some of these stories. But in the first hour of the show, or the first half hour of the show, we have dedicated to a company called RedLock Inc. And we're going to talk to a gentleman from there as we hear all about what they do, how they do it, and it's going to be a very interesting conversation. Now, before we get started, a couple of things, including computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find the show notes, a link to our guest website, any topics, any news, any articles, any reviews, anything that we talk about here on the show, you can find at our website. Also, while you're there, be sure to check out the live video stream, also available over at twitch.tv/computeramerica, and the social media contest brought to you by Logitech. All that and more at our website. Check it out. Really, really appreciate that. Now, as I said, RedLock Inc., and we're going to be talking everything from artificial intelligence, machine learning. We're going to be talking cybersecurity. It's this is obviously a topic that comes up occasionally here on the show, but never gets enough limelight, especially when we get to talk to to individuals who are in the middle of it, who this is their job. So joining us today from the company is Mr. Alok Tongaonkar, and he is the head of data science at RedLock. So Alok, how you doing? Welcome onto Computer America.
Hi, Ben. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. Sounding great, and happy that you could join us. Before we get started, with our questions and our topics, why don't you go ahead and give us a bit of background on RedLock, if we haven't heard of the company, when it was founded, and what is its mission, and then, if you wouldn't mind, a little bit of background on yourself. How long have you been in the tech industry?
Yeah, glad to go over those. So, hello everyone. I'm Alok Tongaonkar. I'm passionate about security and applying AI for security analytics. I've been developing security analytics for over 15 years. I started in security during my PhD in computer science from Stony Brook University, New York. After graduating, I continued developing cybersecurity solutions for companies such as Boeing and Symantec. Mm-hmm. Currently, I'm leading the data science efforts at RedLock, which is a cloud security company. RedLock was founded in 2016. We help secure the companies which are migrating their data and resources to public cloud such as Amazon AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform.
Now, the first question that comes to mind, and this is just off of what you just said, you said migrating their companies from to a public cloud. And when you're talking about security, because I believe that's a lot of kind of what you guys do and what we're going to talk about, I'm no expert, but just the term public cloud puts me on edge as far as security goes. I know that there are passwords. I know that obviously they put a lot of measures to make sure only the correct people only the correct people get access to the correct data. But why has this idea of a public cloud, be it Amazon, be it Google, be it Microsoft, why have these public clouds really taken off? I mean, what makes them so attractive if they're such big targets?
So that's a very interesting question, Ben. So there are two aspects to this question, right? One is why they have taken off and what are the security implications of that. So the reason why these public clouds have taken off so much is because it makes it very easy for new companies and existing companies to have all their infrastructure and data handled by public cloud, right? So companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Google have been doing this for a long, and they can do it at a scale which is much more than what a typical startup or any enterprise can do. As for the security aspect of it, that's on the flip side, that because we are trusting all these companies with our data and infrastructure, now that exposes it to attackers. So we have to be careful as companies, as consumers, where our data is going, and we don't have visibility into what is happening. So this is a very this is an area where people have concerns, but we see that still the public cloud adoption is growing day by day.
Right.
And this is where companies like RedLock play an important role in making sure that your data and resources are safe in the public cloud.
So tell us where RedLock and their security solutions, good enough segue. Tell us about where RedLock and the security solutions kind of stand. Do you connect to Amazon Web Services or whatever, and the customer would then, kind of authenticate through you? Where does your software really kind of sit if people are trying to access the cloud?
Yeah, so we are the consumers don't see RedLock. They don't connect directly to RedLock. What RedLock provides is a solution for enterprises. So any company which is trying to move their data and resources to one of these big public cloud companies, they would give us access to their logs. So this is not the private data of consumers. It's just whatever activity is happening in the cloud. So we get access to only metadata. So it's very safe with us. We don't get to see personal information of consumers. We don't get to see what is stored in, say, the storage services like S3 on Amazon. We just get logs about when someone is accessing this data. And based on that, we provide solutions which, one, give visibility into what is happening in the account, try to detect threats in the environment, and also provide compliance solutions for enterprises such that we make sure that they are compliant with whatever industry standards are there for security in their particular sector.
The only standard I usually ask about, I know that there are standards for government institutions, there are standards for a lot of different ones, but the only one that I always kind of ask about is HIPAA, because people's medical information is very important. Do you deal with hospitals, and are you HIPAA compliant, or do you kind of steer away and just do and I say just and do you just do banking and government secure transactions?
No, actually, that's a very good question. We work in different sectors. So we have companies where they require HIPAA compliance, and we help out with that. So whatever is required from the security aspects for different companies, we serve the banking and financial sector. We serve the medical and health record sector. So we have solutions for that as well.
Very, very nice. Now, all of this very very unmanageable if you had to have someone sitting on a computer and authenticating every single person, or it wouldn't be itself very secure if you just kind of added one more, I don't know, maybe RedLock would send you a text every time you try to log in. Basic security measures really wouldn't be that valuable to large enterprises like you're saying. Talk about machine learning. And, before we even get into how you actually implement it, just in general, talk about machine learning as it relates to security, because as I understand it, it's a pretty good field. Very, very, very much on the growth. And just talk about how machine learning, AI, whatever you want to call it, is helping you kind of do what you do.
Yeah, so this is a very important question. First of all, let me try to explain what machine learning is and what AI is. So AI is basically the field of science which deals with providing computers or machines with the capability to perform tasks requiring human intelligence. So some of the tasks where AI is used widely is for recognizing people in photos, converting speech to text or text to speech, and in self-driving cars. Right. So, and machine learning is a branch which grew out of AI. While AI deals with making machines smarter, Machine learning deals with specific techniques which allow machines to learn without being explicitly programmed. So in a sense, machine learning is a part of AI, and AI contains other techniques beside machine learning as well.
Okay.
To understand this, consider the example of, say, trying to automate the task of filling tax forms. An AI-powered application could take a bunch of rules from an accountant and, given the financial data of a particular individual like you or me, fill up the taxes. Machine learning, on the other hand, can take a look at a large sample of filled tax forms and learn on its own how to fill up the taxes. Right? This is a basic distinction between ML and AI.
Okay.
Now, AI and ML have been there for a long period. These are fields which had a lot of following in the academic world. But it's only recently that companies and industry and governments have started paying attention to AI. And especially in the security space, I think ML has a big role to play in cybersecurity. And the reason is this. Sorry.
And no, I was going to say that it's just obviously reporting on this kind of stuff. I will notice that maybe 2 years ago, artificial intelligence, machine learning were not part of our vocabulary, and then it's like a switch went off, and then suddenly everyone is touting how good their machine learning is. It was a very quick transition.
True. And one of the reasons this has happened is because a lot of the machine learning and AI algorithms have become commoditized. What I mean by this is a lot of large companies are exposing these algorithms, the basic tasks that they perform, as services. And a lot of the companies are actually using these services to build applications on top of that. So where in the past, supposing if I had to create an application where I wanted to recognize people, I would have to create my own algorithm to recognize people. Now I can use some service from either Google or Amazon to recognize people, and then on top of that, build some applications.
Makes perfect sense. And obviously now we can get into how RedLock in particular kind of uses this. And I'm sure that there are a number of ways that you've kind of taught your system, or the system is taught to identify. All right, actually, this is a better way to phrase this. What security threats are you really trying to avoid when it comes to migrating all this data and having making sure that the company who owns it is the only one who accesses it? What threats does machine learning AI kind of help prevent?
Right. So there are 4 main pillars of security or challenges that security professionals face when migrating data and resources to public cloud. And first is visibility. Second is detection of threats. Third is investigating these threats. And third is remediating. And AI and machine learning can play a critical role in securing systems and data in all 4 areas. So let's talk about the first one, which is visibility. So the most basic challenge that security professionals face in cloud is due to its dynamic nature. So they have no visibility into who owns what data or resource or what they are doing with it. And you really can't secure what you can't see. So AI and ML can really help here by providing much needed visibility in this scenario. For instance, AI can help automatically classify resources into different categories, such as whether a resource is a web server or a DB server. Similarly, it can help classify users into different roles, such as whether it's a DB admin or a web admin, or whether the person who's accessing certain data is from HR or is from marketing, whether they are supposed to access that data. This information is useful to better understand who's doing what in the cloud. Now, the next challenge that AI and ML can help solve is in detecting threats or attacks. Mm-hmm. So AI techniques can basically profile users and resources and baseline the normal behavior of users. So for example, what does Ben's normal activity look like as opposed to Alok's activity, right? And any significant deviations from the normal behavior are strong indicators of malicious activity. So someone gets hold of my account, my password, and logs in as Alok. What he is doing will be maybe very different from what I am doing, right? So, for example, I may be using some account only in my office hours, but an attacker in Russia logs in Russia at certain time, and they can see my account. So this is like a very different behavior. I have never logged in from Russia before. This suddenly you see login attempts from Russia at night time, accessing certain records that I have never accessed. So those are the kind of things that AI and ML can help in detecting.
Now,
Once the app,
and sorry to kind of dive into one of these a little bit further, but that particular one is very interesting to me because I've been on the receiving end of that feature really malfunctioning. In that, sometimes I log in, let's say my bank account, and I make a transaction that is processed overseas as opposed to, locally. And my bank will come through and just shut down my whole account until I can prove that, yes, I'm the one who, in fact, made that purchase. Now, obviously, it's obviously something that a lot of, companies are starting to use. But, I mean, how mature of a technology would you say, some of these features are? Like, is this just kind of like a flag that they raise and say, all right, let's ask a few more questions, or is the technology, foolproof?
Yeah, so no technology in the space of security can claim to be foolproof, more because you cannot know whether there is an attack. You can never claim that there is no attack going on because there may be an attack and you might have missed it, or if when you say an attack, it could still be there is a chance that it is not an attack. So the idea is, how can you judge a product, right? Whether it's doing a good job of what it is supposed to do or not. So the way to judge a product is that it is doing a good job if it is marking only things which are really problematic, right? And in your case, like the example that you said, that when there are certain activity that you did, but it is being marked as being malicious or being something that is a security concern, how does the system recover from it? Like, so over time, can the system adapt to your behavior? So it is the case that initially there may be cases where the AI or machine learning technique gives you the wrong results, but the quality of the product depends upon how well it can adapt and take user feedback or learn continuously that, okay, we made this mistake, and can we auto-tune the system such that it doesn't throw such alerts again.
Right. And again, sorry for interrupting your getting into the 4 pillars, but I believe you're about to get into the third one.
Yes. So till now I discussed visibility and detection. Now, once certain attack is detected, the third important thing is to investigate this. And what I mean by investigate is usually you will have some human being going into the attack and trying to find out where was the loophole from where the attackers got in, and trying to understand how they got into the system, right? But AI can bring in different sources of information and correlate those sources to give better context about what is happening and who did what. So it becomes easier for a security operator to understand how the attack unfolded. So it can find different steps in the attack and give all of these information so that the attacker, so that the security professional can concentrate on the meat of the attack, the understanding of how the things happened, rather than looking into a lot of data. And the fourth one is, once the attack has been investigated, how do you remediate the problem, right? How do you close the holes in your system? And here also AI can help a lot by helping in self-healing the environment. So AI can basically select the appropriate actions to take to remedy the security problems. So in short, AI can help identify entities and their activities, detect and investigate threats, and also self-heal the system.
That and that part is, of course, very, very crucial, because you can identify what was wrong, but obviously judging by your client base and who you work with, there's another big problem. And I should ask about integration and how well you work with existing, either networks or, other kind of systems, because especially in places such as banking, as I understand it, a lot of these banking systems are run off, 30-year-old infrastructure. Medical's not too far behind. And just in general, when we see these really big attacks, like, these security breaches, attacks, what have you, it's not generally because new technology has failed these companies, but it's because companies have failed to keep up with the times. They failed to update. They failed to implement what are best practices. And if you had all their ears right now on this show, what would really be your argument to say, I know that it costs a lot. I know that it's not easy to do, but you should really upgrade. Like, why should these institutions really try to, keep up to date?
Right, that's a very good question. And one of the things that I would like to say about security is also that most of the attacks and threats that you see are because of existing system where things have not been configured properly, or things where people are exposing things in their private, the things that should be confidential are being exposed to the public, right? And what RedLock does is RedLock is an infrastructure as a service a security company. So we protect the infrastructure as well. So we have a solution which looks at whatever is the infrastructure, how things have been configured, and generates alerts where proactively, before an attack happens, we can tell that, okay, in your system, these are the problems that you see. And a lot of the customers that we have see value in RedLock because we go and do a POC with a company, and within hours, we have reports which tell about what their existing system is doing, what are the different holes in their system, what are the different problems, and banks or institutes find a great value in going and fixing these problems before these become problematic and there are attacks on them.
No, makes of course that makes perfect sense. Now, and yeah, I think we already answered this, but I kind of want to rephrase it kind of in the same way. As far as consumers go, and like you said, you're not really consumer facing. This is to help larger institutions kind of keep themselves secure. But at the end of the day, you are helping consumers and patients and other users kind of be sure that when one of these when one of these places are hacked, they are not the victims. Their information in particular are not lost. What are some of the big threats to, let's say, consumer, either consumer data or consumers being on the cloud? What are some? Is it nation sponsored hacking? Is it random people in Western Europe? I mean, where are the threats coming from that you're trying to stop?
So if you think about it, nowadays, the barrier to attack a system has become so low because attackers have started commoditizing the attack vectors as well, that these attacks are coming from script kiddies, they are coming from people with a lot of resources, because the incentive is there to attack these systems, right? Because there is a lot of financial gain that they can have. For example, if someone can hack into a system like a financial company and they can get credit card information, it's a lucrative market. There is black market where such information is stored, such stolen information is sold. And also, if you see, there is a new kind of attack that is coming up because of these movement of resources of companies from their own premises to the cloud providers. So one class of attack which is becoming widespread is called as cryptojacking, right? So what cryptojacking means is people use the compute power of other companies. They get into the system, some companies' systems, and start using the compute of that company for mining cryptocurrency. So the attackers have an incentive to do this. So they are not paying for the compute. The company is paying for the compute. So this is like a problem for the company, but also for the consumer, because the compute power that could be used on behalf of consumers is being wasted to do crypto mining for the attackers. So both from the data perspective, where the personal data of consumers is being leaked, like in the sort of the Target attack or for the attack against Home Depot. On the other hand, you have cryptojacking incidences like against Tesla.
Right. And that was something that I guess was kind of big. I don't know if you security guys have really figured out how to stop it, but that was also big for consumers because they were actually able to kind of get into, the back end of websites and put in a very, very small snippet of code, and it would take over resources just from people browsing. Like, you didn't even have to click on anything. It would simply just start as soon as you loaded, that particular script. And that was very harmful. I mean, is that something that you detect? Is that something that you just kind of stop natively?
Yes, so that is one of the things that we have been actively doing. The RedLock has a research unit which has been finding a lot of such vulnerabilities in different companies, and we have been being good citizens, informing the companies so that they plug those holes before they become problems that someone in public can exploit.
Right. So yeah, that's of course very, very important. Let's talk about, let's see, how common is it for technologies that have as much potential as machine learning to be co-opted by cybercriminals? So that's a great question, where obviously you are using machine learning to identify, kind of habits and that kind of thing. Whereas I guess, hey, any technology used, can be used in any which way that the person designing it wants. Are there any applications where you're finding machine learning has a way of, maybe analyzing, if they have the data available to them, where they can analyze, let's say Ben does work from 9 to 5, and the machine learning, it can execute scripts, it can, it has the vulnerability, it can go in, and it also knows all the information that it can do its best. It knows to log into this, even though it's in Russia. It knows that it can, that it can only log in between 9 and 5. It knows this, that, and the other. Are we seeing artificial intelligence, machine learning used for nefarious ends, and does that have any traction?
Certainly, it is becoming more and more common for attackers to also use ML-driven techniques. So they use that to identify the best targets. So for example, they could mine a lot of information to figure out who's the person who is most likely to get attack, who would be easy target. They also use the analyze the responses from defense mechanisms to understand which defense mechanism is being used, right? And also, for example, attacks like phishing, which used to be random and the likelihood of phishing attacks used to be very low. Now you see more and more targeted phishing attacks where I know that Ben is working for this company. He's interested in these things. These are his reading habits. So I send out mail to Ben, which makes it more likely for him to click on the link, right? Mm-hmm. And one last class of attacks that we are starting to see this class of attackers because the attackers know that the defense mechanisms are using ML-based techniques to train models. We are seeing now attackers also trying to render these ML models ineffective by poisoning the data that is there. So just for example, in case of, say, Ben, we know that you are accessing from 9 to 5. Either they can try to hide their activity by doing the similar activity. So they know that this is a machine learning model, how it will detect. So they try to evade it. Or the other thing that they could do is when the model is being generated, when they're learning, they would start adding some accesses there from Russia and this. So the machine learning thinks that, okay, that's usual. Ben usually accesses this account from Russia as well. So when they actually have to do the attack, it wouldn't be able to detect it.
Right. Now, and Alok, we only have like about a minute and a half left, so I want you to kind of leave everyone with something a little bit positive and talk about if people want to find more information and what services, or like, as you hear that you offer audits, demos, that kind of thing over at RedLock. Talk about if people want to find more information and what you can do for them.
Yeah, certainly. I think this is a very exciting time to be using AI in cybersecurity. AI has the potential to tilt the balance of power in the favor of security professionals. Currently, there's a big imbalance in the demand of trained security professionals and the supply. And AI can alleviate this problem by doing a lot of the stuff that security professionals could do. And I'm optimistic that as more and more companies adopt security product based on AI and ML, we will see that the bar for attacking systems will be much higher, and thus the incentive for the bad guys to attack the systems will become much lower. And if you want to find out more about the kind of attacks that we prevent and the ML techniques that we use, all this good stuff that we do, we have a blog series on our website, redlock.io, and we talk about a lot of these learnings that people can take from us.
Yeah, I noticed that at the very bottom right there, your latest article was the top 10 election security best practices. And it's so unfortunate, right. We have to go, but I will say that it's unfortunate that the election said we have to go back to paper. I'm like, no, technology can solve this problem. But yes. Alok, I want to thank you so much for coming on. We got to go, but everyone, a link at computeramerica.com, RedLock Inc. Everyone, we'll be right back. Alok, have a great day.
Thanks a lot, Ben. It was my pleasure talking to you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
Welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour, and if you missed any part of today's interview with RedLock Inc., you can, of course, check that out wherever podcasts are heard. And also, we have a video recording of it on YouTube, as well as everything backed up on our website. Now, that being said, I will say that we had a very interesting conversation, and you should definitely go back and check that out. Again, a big thanks to Alok for coming on. He let me know that it was his first time on the radio, and I think he did a fantastic job. Let's go ahead and talk about computer and technology news. Obviously, yesterday we had a whole show with Sandy Berger. Of course, love her input, and we talked a lot about digital assistants, but just unfortunately, we're not able to talk about Apple. And Apple had their big keynote. They were discussing the next generation of iPhone, and I believe they also snuck in the Apple Watch, maybe a couple other announcements about iOS, but in general, the big thing was, of course, iPhones. Now, in computer and technology news, we will go ahead and break down what they announced and more. Everyone, computer and technology news, here we go. Now, instead of strictly going straight for, kind of a breakdown of Apple's offerings, we're going to get into this article, which it will, in a way, give you all the information that you kind of need, but also complaining a little bit. And this is a complaint that I've been having for a little while now, ever since that magical $1,000 was broken by the Samsung phone, Samsung Galaxy S9, I believe. But yeah, I mean, $1,000 for a phone, and again, these are starting prices. It's really, really something. Now, the gripe continues because Apple announced their iPhones, and the latest iPhone, the iPhone XS, not XS, XS Max, I believe. If you order the 520, let's see, I think it's like 528 or whatever it is, 526, the 500 gig iPhone XS Max, with all the bells and whistles, goes for $1,450, $1,450. I can't do numbers today. That is an insane amount of money. I don't care how rich you are for a phone, or is it? We'll get into why it might not be, but I will say that is we are getting into danger territory where people are really going to start shunning the latest and greatest phones. And if we haven't already crossed that line, we are very quickly going to. And that's not good for these companies because they rely a lot on people upgrading, investing, and saying, hey, I need this next generation phone. And if you start to get to a price point where they instead say, do I really need it? Not I need this, but do I need it? That's where one of these times, the unveiling followed by the poor sales is going to not cripple, but really send a shockwave through the tech companies out there. That might not be this time, but we're getting to that point. I promise you that. Now, this article that we're going to discuss is, in fact, from Engadget, Mr. Nathan Ingram, coming out only an hour ago, talking about Apple has raised the price of its best phone by $330 over the course of 2 years. $330 raised ceiling. Now, he said that the trend over the last few years is clear. iPhone sales are down. Apple wasn't going to be able to achieve huge sales growth forever until the company makes inroads into India or strengthen its position in China, where obviously India and China, regardless of what you think of America and our place in the market, we're a very saturated market. Everyone has a smartphone. If you're getting a smartphone, it's going to be just simply an upgrade as someone else ditches. Now, we are a market of about 400 million strong, yay for us, whereas China and India combined are a market of, I think, like almost 3 billion, somewhere in the mid 2 billions. That's a huge market. Even though obviously they don't have as much income as we do, it's still, if you can convince even a portion of that to start buying your phones, that is a massive revenue boost that you want to achieve. Now, as you said, obviously sales are down. That might lead to the problem of obviously them increasing the prices to make up that difference, because investors don't like anything to go down. Investors, stockholders, if they see sales are down and the revenue is down, that's a problem. So how do you overcome this? You overcome it by raising the price of your product, where if you now sell, instead of 100 million, you're selling 80 million. If you can charge 20% more, you're keeping the same revenue. It's pretty basic, but that's not good for the consumer. And he said that if you can, cast your mind back to the heady days of 2016, simply 2 years ago, where the brand new iPhone 7 cost $650 for the base 32 gigs of storage. And the iPhone 7 Plus came out at about $769, so about $100 more for the larger, better phone. Now, all that being said, for about $800, you can get away with the best of the best that Apple had to offer. Last year, the iPhone X came in at just a hair under $1,000. And if you wanted the standard iPhone, you could still get away with a hair under $800. The best of the best came out, about $30. Now we are looking at the iPhone XR. That is the new, I don't want to say cheap, but even the most affordable lineup of this generation of phones, even the most affordable iteration of this generation of phones, now leads us to a place where we are simply $50 less than the iPhone 8, and we are now, I think, like about $20 less than the best phone that Apple had to offer 2 years ago. And that's now entry level. That's now entry level is where the old flagship used to be. And you aren't even getting the best of the technology. You're getting a lot of serious downgrades, including aluminum, LCD instead of OLED. You're getting a little bit slower processor. And also, I think you lose the 3D touch. A couple of drawbacks. Nothing that makes it an unusable phone. The benchmarking still has to come out. But all in all, it makes it a very... The only reason that the XR exists is because if they didn't have this one, if they didn't have this third option for the first time in a long time, if they didn't have this third option, you would have to pay $900 just to get into an iPhone. And even that is just ridiculous. Now, 2 years ago, obviously a flagship phone started at $650 and then $750. Now we're looking at $1,000, or even in some cases, like I said, with all the bells and whistles, $1,450 for the tippy top, with the iPhone XS Max capping out at $1,100 baseline. They said that that's pretty remarkable. It'll help keep Apple's revenues growing, even if iPhone sales don't increase in terms of pure numbers. In fact, it's already working. Whereas the iPhone's average selling price increased to $724 in the last quarter, up from only $606 in the year before. Now, Apple is in an even better position to keep that number moving up. That's great for investors, but as consumers, not good, especially if you don't. Obviously, a lot of people go on like a 2-year upgrade cycle, and $1,000 over 2 years. The pain of that is spread out over a very long time. But what happens when the pain of that becomes, $1,400, $1,600 over the course of 2 years, on top of basic contract fees and usage fees? Is a phone as valuable? And here's a point I was going to bring up with the beginning, but these prices are ridiculous for phones, but they might not be ridiculous for devices we constantly use. If everyone is using their phone for 3 hours a day and it's their main form of communication, of productivity, of entertainment, if this thing is one of the most used items in their life, maybe it's okay for a phone to be $1,400. Thinking of a phone as a phone, and going back into the olden days of saying who would ever pay that much for a phone, they are much more than that. I wish that the price would stay down to something that obviously people are comfortable with, but maybe they're comfortable paying more and more and more year over year simply because they're relying on their phone more, and it's worth it. The trade-off is worth it. These extra couple $100, even if a lot of people can't, couldn't justify it in their heads, maybe they could justify it in their day-to-day usage. Now, obviously, we very, very subtly kind of mentioned the specs there. Everyone, for just a quick run through, if you did not watch the event, the iPhone 10 is now they skipped 9 completely. 9, get the heck out of here. We are now iPhone 10R, which is the cheaper $750 phone. It's aluminum instead of stainless steel. The screen's a little bit worse. The specs, I think the camera's a little worse too. It's comparable to an iPhone 8, but it's still an iPhone 10 with in terms of design. The iPhone 10, it's the iPhone 10s. That's right, the iPhone 10s. That is their new kind of entry level phone kind of deal. Although the size of it is on par with a traditional, let's say 8 Plus, 7 Plus, 6 Plus, whatever plus you want. It's a large honking phone. I kind of have one here in my hand. They are, they're big. So keep in mind, the new baseline is still a big phone. If you really enjoy the smaller form factor, you're going to want to go with an XR or a 10R. The 10S Max. Now that is an even bigger phone. It has a 6.5 inch panel. Compare that to a 5 inch on the 10S. 6.5. This thing's a monster. It's a beast. And as Tim Cook said, it is their most advanced phone yet. You can check it out there. The specs again are going to come out. The resolution's very good. 6.5 inches, as we said, comes with Dolby Vision and HDR10, so it's going to be HDR obviously compatible. High touch sensitivity rate. They did away with the home button. That's the other obviously notable thing. They did away with the home button, and it's simply a single clean surface that will have either FaceTime or the face unlocking capability. It will scan your face, and then as soon as you hold it up to your face, it will know who you are, and it will unlock for you. Convenient. We're going to push aside the security and the privacy features for another time, but I will say it's a very slick looking phone. Now, it has a 7 megapixel camera. And by the way, the 7 megapixel camera is the front-facing, rear-facing, 12 megapixel camera, and it's a wide-angle and a telephoto camera. So lots of different options, as well as I think some more, for all you photographers out there, it's going to offer a bit more customization in terms of how your pictures are actually taken. Let's see. Anything else? Yeah, I heard some news about the A12 processor. They said it carries out 1 trillion operations a second. Now, A12 upgrading obviously from the A11 processor. The A11 processor handled, I want to say, 400 billion processes or operations, I should say. And this one again handling 1 trillion, 600 billion more. In other words, about 150% faster. And that's just in terms of operations, though. No one process is going to take control of all of those operations. Many of the operations and operation cycles are going to go unused. Do not think that simply because it can do 1 trillion operations a second means that you will get 150% performance. No, in fact, the performance will probably be about the same, but it will give it more headroom and it will allow more simultaneous processing. And they also added some machine learning chip inside of it as well. No big deal. The guts are good. The guts are they're a basic upgrade. Across the board, everything's going to go up a little bit, but that's something that we've been expecting from Apple. Apple doesn't revolutionize these phones. They simply stay the course. A notable but small upgrade in hardware specs, and they call it a day. And they charge you, as we went over, $300 more for the privilege. 30-minute extended battery life, that of course has to do with the processor we were just talking about. It's a 7-nanometer chip. We talk a lot on the show about how the size of the processor actually does matter. It's a 7-nanometer chip. Not a lot of companies are using it. They said that this is the first flagship phone using the 7-nanometer processor, and because of that, they're able to give you more performance with the same amount of heat and actually add about half an hour of battery usage or, usage lifetime on the device, which I think is pretty nice. Battery life has certainly come a long way. It's not that whole idea that, hey, you can use your phone for 24 hours straight, but if you can increase the specs and extend the battery life by even a little bit, anything that doesn't shorten the life, you're good to go. Very, very nice. Now, all this, you can find it over at Apple's site. As we said before, starts at $1,100, can go all the way up to $1,450 if you want the best of the best. But, hey, it's Apple. They no longer excite. They no longer thrill. They are simply there to keep pushing the same product with 20% better specs year over year because their investors love it. I wish I was more excited about it. I wish I was. Some of the other things that they mentioned about the watch were pretty interesting. Some of the other things that they mentioned about the iOS was pretty interesting. The phones, though, I'm having a really hard time getting truly excited for them. But that's just me. Now, sorry, we should have known iOS was going to take up 20 minutes, or Apple was going to take up 20 minutes all on its own. Let's go ahead and switch stories on over to, how about this one? This is an idea that's been battered around for quite a while now, and I wanted my audience to know about this, of course, where I also want you guys to, just kind of keep in the back of your head that brighter days are ahead. This coming to us from Alpha, Alpha. Yeah, but I've seen it on other sites. This is just one that kind of picked it up, caught my eye today. I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's go ahead. The 4-day week. That may sound insane to a lot of people because the 5-day work week has been ingrained for us in well over a generation, in many generations. We cannot imagine a time that we didn't have to get up Monday through Friday and get to work and do our thing. Even though, anecdotally, many people out there can say that they can do their job. They can do their job to the same effect by simply going to work 4 days a week as opposed to 5 days a week. Or, in other words, 32 hours a week instead of 40 hours a week. And the research is coming in. They have test studies going on in a lot of different countries, and a lot of companies on a very individual, on a very small scale, are also experimenting with it, where they still get, in some cases they still get paid for 5 days but only work 4, or rather, some of them are even taking pay cuts to get an extra day off, but they still get to keep the job at the same pay rate and all that good stuff. Hey, a lot of people are going for it, and the science coming back looks very, very promising that it's true. A lot of time is wasted just because you have that need to look like you're busy. You have that need to just show up because you have to show up, but not a lot of detriment for actually moving over to a 4-day work week. And if you're wondering where technology comes in, it's all because of technology. Let's face it, compare your 5-day work week to your parents' 5-day work week, where they had to go in. There was no other way to communicate, do work. You had to go into a central building, talk with your colleagues, and do work. Now, we have laptops, we have home offices, we have smartphones, we have ways of staying in communication, and our productivity is better than ever. We have companies on the show all the time that can automate tasks, that can improve working conditions, that can make any worker efficient to the nth degree. That's where the 4-day work week shines. Now, the article, they're saying that thankfully the 4-day work week could well become a reality thanks to both the rapid adoption of technology both in and out of the workplace. They said that speaking at the Trade Union Congress annual gathering in Manchester, the organization's general security backed the 4-day work week as a very real possibility, saying that, quote, "I believe that in this century we can win a 4-day working week with decent pay for everybody." Saying that in her eyes, the 21st century is in a time of rapid industrial disruption, and so is the opportune time to take back control of working time. Really, really, really looking forward to. Now, obviously, this doesn't apply to me because, hey, radio show, we're a creative force, and, I'm sure they're talking more, other kinds of jobs, but still exciting. They said that ideas such as driverless cars, drones are becoming a reality, and machines will be used for more and more jobs in the future. On the face of it, this sounds like bad news. However, if governments and businesses are clever, the advance of technology could actually be a real positive for people all over the world. It could help accelerate the marketplace to work smarter, to much smarter working practices. And that's the idea, is that you don't replace people, you keep the people But then instead of them doing the repetitive, mindless task, they work 4 days a week and they get even more done. That's the beauty of technology, is that you get even more done. It's just the idea that you take away a day and everyone's going to assume you are reducing productivity by 20%, time that they could otherwise spend working. But that's just not what we're finding when you actually do give back that 1 day a week, go to a 4-3 working schedule. Workers are much more relaxed and relieved to go throughout their week actually putting in real effort as opposed to just kind of cruise control because they're overworked. Now, I think that's all we're going to, kind of get. They go into some studies such as New Zealand and, of course, in the EU. They have tried this so far. But, hey, I just wanted to throw it out there that the 4-day work week, it's not crazy. It's not science fiction. It could be coming. Man, a lot of different stories. We're going to cover this last one and then call it a day here. We'll save some of these stories for tomorrow. But for everyone out there, if you browse the internet, if you... if you have been on social media, Facebook, Reddit, any of these other sites, you have situations where you're running into pictures. Now, this is going to not border. This is, in fact, going to be about fake news. It's a very real problem. It's not just the idea, that it's not whatever politicians are claiming it is, but the idea that, you're taking pictures, videos, text out of context or even within context, and you are intentionally hyping up people's emotions over these events. Fake news, regardless of what it is, there are ways of tracking it, there are ways of shutting it down, but one way that they've gotten around it is that while you can scan for text all day long, the words that people use can be very... the words can be outright lies, and you can fact check that, you can dispute that, and that's very easy to kind of spot. But a lot of new fake news is happening through photos and images and memes, things like that. That's where Facebook, because it's a social media site and they are rampant with these, that's what they're trying to tackle next, is the fact that, hey, the words, they really don't matter because the words could be in the picture themselves. And now Facebook has developed a picture scanning tool, and not just picture, but also video and audio that can scan the pictures, scan the audio, scan the video, and it can tell you if, let's say there's a big, bold, words that come across the screen claiming something that's completely false. Facebook can tell you if this is real or not, and then they can then take the appropriate action to send it to a human for review, who can then take it down. But that's how this kind of news is spread, is that it's a very easy picture to, to just kind of repost, retweet, whatever. These pictures that are misleading, fake, non-factual, that are quickly shared and shared thousands of times. That's what they're trying to combat, and Facebook has said that they're tackling it. They said that we know that fighting false news is a long-term commitment, saying that as the tactics used by bad actors are always changing. She added that Facebook will continue to take action in the short term, which includes investing in more technology like this to ensure that users won't have to keep being exposed to different types of fake news. It's a challenge that the company is definitely trying to tackle. I believe Google is also doing their best to tackle it as well. It's not easy, but as I say with most things, technology is going to be the answer once again. Whatever problems technology has introduced into our lives, let's kind of hope that technology can get us out of the same situation. Everyone on the East Coast of the United States, in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, stay safe. Please, please, please try to stay dry. I know that the hurricane is barreling down on you guys, but just know that we're thinking of you and really, really, really hope that the damage is minimal to non-existent. Everyone else, thank you for tuning into Computer America. I want to say that it's been a great show. Thank you, RedLock, once again, for joining us and giving us that great interview. And until next time, let's see, tomorrow on the show, if we can get this real quick. Tomorrow on the show, we have the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Ralph Bond, joining us, where we talk about different kind of news articles. If you want to upbeat, Ralph Bond's your guy. Until next time, everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. And again, stay safe. Bye, everyone.